you go.
I'm sorry,
It was, I didn't see the light on.
I didn't have it on. Extra
Future
meeting.
meetings. Planning Commission meeting is Tuesday, December 17th at 7:30 PM. At the Town Council meeting will be Monday, January 6th at 7:30 PM. Is there any other meetings that's not on here that's scheduled for the beginning of January? None? Okay, that's all we have. Is there any public comment? Maddie, any public comment? Just one. Diane, you want to public comment now or during the meeting? Alrighty. Okay, we're on to the agenda items. Modification of the pool house renovation contract with Omega Contracting and Consulting LLC.
Yes, as the board approved Omega Contracting and Consulting for the bathhouse renovation, I believe a couple of months ago. And then as we were working with the contractor and reviewing our RFP, we failed to include in the initial RFP the permitting and the architectural plans that are required by the county to obtain permits. So we had to add that on to the contract with Omega. And we also reached out to another firm just to get an idea on pricing for what they've submitted as well. So with the additional funds, so the initial contract was $66,329, and you'll see the permitting and plans come to a total of $27,811. Again, this is all necessary to obtain the permits and then the architectural signed plans that we'll need as well. With the grant for program open space, we received $71,066, which required a 25% match. So we had funds available of $94,755. So we're still under the grant amount that's due. I'd highlight on page 4 is a rough sketch of what they're going to do inside the bathhouse. And then on page 5, time, we're hoping to get work started December 18th. So if this is approved by the board, they will start with the permitting and plans for the drawings. And then they'll begin demo work on February 24th with a completion date of March 30, 2020. We do have in the contract, if there's any delay, to that schedule, it's $100 per day. This contract's been reviewed countless times by Leslie and back and forth between Leslie and the contractor.
Even with the missed stuff, we're still under the other bidders that were there.
Correct, because their bids did not include permitting and plans either.
Mr. President.
Yes. Mr. Brown.
Just out of curiosity, how did they keep it so low in comparison to everyone else? Like they're like 38,000 less.
Right, and
I only because I wasn't a part of when we initially asked that question. I was curious if.
right. Every line item came under, and I don't have all the line items in front of me, but each line item that they proposed came under. Everybody else is bid by about 1,000. So demo was about 1,000 cheaper, plumbing, electrical, and so then it all added up to being that much cheaper than everyone else.
Okay. I was just curious when I looked at the numbers, it was like substantial.
Much cheaper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have they ever done any work for us before, or is this the first time?
Not for us. Their company's based out of South Carolina. They've been in Maryland for the last several years. The reference checks were very good. They do specialize in bathhouses also.
Oh, great.
Any other questions?
Just, well,
Mr. O'Donnell?
yes, sir, thank you. I'm looking at page 14 to 29. Three items. Trying to get the right number here, sorry. Item 30, provide and install lumber to create 6 FRP shower stalls. Do we want to designate the quality of lumber? I mean, is there a value to that regarding like waterproof and, I know it's going to be painted, but still, you know, a higher tier versus a lower tier that we're going to replace in 2 years because of rot? Like pressure treated?
Then,
Okay,
I mean, we can.
okay, so could we
All
add,
the, all, everything they do has to pass the county and state level health department inspections for plumbing and electrical work, but we can specify that.
okay. The other one, the item number 39, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The shower fixtures, is there going to be any accommodation for ADA compliance there?
Yes,
Like-
one,
Okay.
in each bathroom there is an ADA compliant shower
Okay, great.
for men's and women's, so they'll have all the appropriate fixtures.
Okay, so the height issue there, okay, terrific. The last item is electric hand dryers seem counterintuitive in a room full of wet people. Why aren't we going with paper towels, just curiously? Just to limit mess, or?
Mess, slipping hazard when they fall on the ground,
I don't understand.
paper towels, when they
Oh.
fall on the ground, get wet, step on them, fall,
Okay.
down you go. Waste, it's green.
Okay, green, all right. Just,
They're not the hazard you think they are.
okay, I hope not.
They're specific for restrooms and bathrooms.
No, I'm familiar with them, but in a wet environment like that, it always gives me pause. Well, let's be hyper vigilant in the wiring for those and sourcing, because that just bells and whistles on that one. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Ritz?
I had none.
Okay. I don't have any either. So we need a motion to accept the changes or amendments or the new contract.
Yes.
It's a whole new contract, correct?
Correct, so if you could approve the contract at the $94,140 for Omega.
I make a motion to modify the pool house renovation contract with Omega Contracting and Consulting LLC, and accepting the new project cost of $94,140 for that contract.
A second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Donald, second by Commissioner Davis. Any other questions before we vote?
No.
Alrighty, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any, passes 5-0. No nays. Alrighty, number 2, workshop, planning workshop for the
I don't know how they went
future
around this.
economic development for the town of Emmitsburg.
So do you want, we basically have, between the mayor, myself, and Zach, we've come up with 3 separate ordinances that addresses, I think, all the items that the board discussed at the last workshop that we kind of wanted to see moving forward to promote economic development in town. Zach can go through each one and, if you want to listen, and then we can ask questions or discuss, or however you want to. It's fine.
All right, hello.
Go
ahead.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Tim. You got a question?
No, it's just, it was proposed as if we want to listen. I know I do want to listen. I can't speak for the board, but I have faith they will.
All right, so the mayor, Kathy, and I, and Amy, we've all been working really hard on this. Mayors called around the different towns, spoke with their mayors. Kathy and I and the mayor has been sitting in on conference calls with other towns just to see what other municipalities are doing, to see how we can get a competitive advantage, and hopefully bring some commercial business to the town, institutional, industrial. So what we came up with one ordinance, a resolution, and also a small business tax credit, which I'll talk about that at the end. So for the first one, I'd like to say that the city of Brunswick is the only municipality in Frederick County that allows a waiver of tap fees. and they allow up to 30% waiver, and they also allow a connection fee payment plan, which that's what we found really attractive in their system. So we kind of mimicked off of that, and we did some adjustments. So we'll go through that now. So on page 17, I'll start. So first, we're going to just clean up the ordinance just a little bit here. So Title 13, this is the water system. So water service and connection capacity charges. Basically, first, on C, we removed that because 2 million gallons, FEMA's not even at 2 million gallons. It doesn't really make sense to have that in the ordinance. So we replaced that with a sewer and water connection fee payment plan is established for non-residential properties, the terms and conditions of which will be determined from time to time by the mayor and board of commissioners and enacted by a resolution. Next, we updated the fixture unit chart for equivalent units for commercial, industrial, and institutional properties. So basically, this is how we determine what the tap fees will be for water and sewer. For every 15 fixtures, it equals 1 residential unit equivalent. So that would be, if you have 15 fixtures, that's $8,000 for sewer and $8,200 for water. So what we did to this is I reached out to Frederick County, and we have the exact same model as the county, with the exception of the motel and rooms, which we'll go over. So apartment per apartment, this is institutional apartment, so not dorm rooms, but more of apartments for Mount St. Mary's if they brought into town, something like that. It's not the residential apartments that normal people would live in for a year long. So we put that at 10. Single drinking fountains, we updated that. Drinking fountains, high, low, or double, and then we included the fixture rate and the trap size. Updated floor drains. I added an ice cream dipper well. I'm on page 19. And just updated some little bit here and there for that, which I won't go over too much because there's not too much significance to it. So the main difference, what we did here was for motel or dormitory rooms. So before we had motel dormitory rooms broken down into bathroom only and bathroom and kitchenette. 7.5 fixtures for the first and 10 fixtures for the second. So Kathy and I and the mayor, we looked at the water usage at the sleep-in, and we determined that they hardly use any water. They don't use that much water for a 7.5 and 10 fixture counts. So what we did was, and we thought it made sense, is we changed it to 2.5, which is the same exact rate for the comprehensive care bed, or better known as a nursing home room. When people go to the hotels, you might get a shower, your wife or husband might get a shower, and that's pretty much the extent of it for the day. I mean, they might use the restroom a couple times, and you're not going to use high water. And today's hotels, they use a lot of, good, what is it? What's the name of is it LEED? Yeah, they use LEED certified buildings, so the less water, less electric, less everything. So we feel that would be appropriate to match it with a nursing home unit because of the water usage.
This is what the county does too, right?
Okay, so any questions on that?
So by changing the fixture count or adjusting fixture count, you adjust the number of taps that are required. And it fits more appropriately with the amount of water, because we only have the sleep-in to go by. So it lines up more with the amount of water sleep-in uses in a quarter with the number of taps that realistically are being used.
So how many taps have we've gained from changing it?
So it brought it down to 20.4 per water, 20.4 per sewer.
And it was before it was 40?
80s.
That was 80.
It was like 80.4 or something.
I think it was around
80?
80s, I think.
Mr. President, question.
Yes.
Sleep-In has a pool. Obviously, that's going to be greater numbers. I do not believe the new unit will have a pool, so obviously that's going to affect their number as well, correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yep, absolutely.
And water usage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Definitely. You want me to mention All right, so going on, we did the same exact thing for the sewer system, so I won't go over that. It's the same exact changes.
Okay.
So that will be our first recommendation. So if you pass the ordinance, then goes along the resolution, which is page 27. And this is the resolution establishing the terms and conditions for the sewer and water connection fee payment plan for non-residential properties. Okay, so I'll summarize this. I'll go through line by line. So number one, a qualified applicant is defined as a non-governmental and/or non-residential property, and they have a total combined number of sewer and water connections that are equal to or greater than 30 for a single tax parcel. So this is going to be a pretty rare occurrence. You're not going to see 30 taps on a restaurant. You're not going to see 30 taps on even a a manufacturer. It's pretty specific use. It has to, hotel would definitely go over 30 taps because they do use a little more water. And also it needs to create private sector employment. Two, the payment plan is not available for government or quasi-government owned properties. Three, the payment plan will allow for up to a 5-year payment plan for qualified applicants with at least 25% of the total sewer and water connection fee to be paid upon submittal of the zoning permit, and the remainder will be divided into equal quarterly payments. There's 5 years, so that would be 20 quarterly payments. 4, the mayor and board of commissioners may allow a waiver up to 10% of the total sewer and water connection fees if you so wish. 5, the payment plan may not be used to pay fees other than sewer and water connection fees, such as zoning permit fees or other fees. 6, the town's planning department will manage the application process. 7, the collateral for the capacity purchased under the payment plan shall be the real property which the capacity serves. So basically, to protect the town, if the business would go out of business, would be a lien on the property, and we would have first right to lien. So we would receive our money first. 8, if any installment payment due under the payment plan has not been received within 30 days from the date of its invoice, the town shall have the option to terminate the water and sewer service to the property and or demand full payment of the outstanding balance due under the payment plan. And then 9, a property owner may only have one outstanding payment plan payment at a time. So are there any questions on those? Then I'll go to my next.
I just have one.
Sure.
How much of a savings how much of a cut would that be from what was the original 788 or was it 800,000? What was it?
So it was originally over 700,000, and this will,
450 almost.
this will cut it down to 330,480, and then the board would have the option, if they so desire, to reduce it by another 10%. So 300,000 is the max.
That's both of them combined.
That's both combined.
So they're saving almost 350,000 over half.
Over 400.
Yeah, over half. 60%.
Yeah.
That's without 10%.
Without,
Right.
All righty. Any other questions before you move on?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Okay, number one, thank you for putting this together. A clarification to understand, so I'm with it. This is modeled after who's existing?
City of Brunswick.
Terrific, okay. Second item, years ago, there was an interaction between the town and the university regarding a research lab setup, and it got shut down, or rather, perhaps shot down, as a result of the water consumption piece. Now, moving forward, assuming that there's improvements in technology like LEED certification and other variables there, is it a concern that this might exclude that class of businesses?
So if they would use over 30 taps combined,
Right.
they would be eligible for this.
Okay, all right, so that's our class threshold?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure I got that. So that could encourage that, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Is that aligned with Frederick City, do you know offhand?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, all right, that's fair. And the reason I'm asking is just we have the technology corridor on 270. We have, Fort Detrick and its supporting labs, and we have other like MedImmune and biological type research entities south of us. But if this made it more amenable for them to come north, that's certainly a good job base, and that's something we would certainly want to encourage. So, okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, go ahead, Zach. You can move on to the next.
Okay, sure. Amy, can you please turn on the slide? We'll just have a brief presentation here. So as we spoke about at our last meeting, we are going to recommend the town adopts the county's small business tax credit model. It goes over 6 years. I'll kind of summarize it again in case those at home listening haven't heard. So for years 1 and 2, there's going to be a 40% tax credit. For years 3 and 4, there's a 30% tax credit, and 5 and 6, there's a 20% tax credit. Then the 7th year, we would be at 100%. It would go back to 100% that we would receive. So I did 2 different models here. One, assuming again it's a $7 million valuation, so 100% of the tax bill would be $25,200 a year. And also, there's the model for an $8 million, which would be $28,800 a year. So I did a side-by-side comparison. The left side, which is the red, will show the total tax credit. And on the right, it's going to show what we would actually be receiving at those same times. So worst case scenario, in the 6 years, it's going to be $51,000 approximately. And then that same year, we'll be receive well over $120,000. Also at the bottom there, assuming that the lot remains empty, on a $245,000 evaluation, which many of the properties over there are around that ballpark, we're only receiving right now currently $882 a year. So if we do nothing and it sits vacant for another 6 years, we'd only receive $5,200 approximately. So it kind of shows that there are benefits of this. We want to try to bring businesses in. And one thing we do have to do, however, that's why we didn't have an ordinance in your packet, is this actually requires an act by the governor and General Assembly. So they have to put a line or two in the tax code that states Emmitsburg has the authority to give this tax break. And one good thing about this, if it is, I don't see it being any kind of a problem with our legislators. If it is adopted, the county's also going to administer this for us. So it's going to save a lot of tax staff time and be really helpful.
Oh, that's good.
Do
Commissioner Ritz?
do we have to give direction then to our local delegates? Does that come from the board? Does that come from the mayor? How does that work?
So what I had, if you would like this on the January or February meeting, I have an agenda item basically stating the board's giving the authority to the mayor and staff to reach out to our delegates and push it along the way.
Okay.
And it's not the state's money, so they're not gonna deny it, you know.
Well, one doesn't know until one knows.
Yeah.
Let the vote be taken to speak to that issue.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes, sir.
you have any questions?
Weighing the 2 options you're putting in front of us, and so far we're seeing 2, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
If I listen to what you said carefully, there's the word. Staff is recommending the small business tax credit model versus the modified fee payment plan.
No, all 3. So these
Okay.
would be all options for moving forward for economic development.
Great, okay.
So it's a proposal of 3 kind of separate things.
Okay,
The good thing about the small business tax model is you don't have to be a large corporation to benefit off this. For an example, if you have a restaurant in town, they want to expand by 2,500 square feet or more, and they are willing to hire up to 5 full-time. That's the caveat. You have to have 5 full-time new employees within 2 years. So it's a good thing for the town because we'll receive income tax from those 5 employees. It'll give 5 people employment, and also we'll have a nicer and better business.
sure,
So not just for the big guys.
sure. I like that. Thank you for clarifying these things.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Bruns?
How would this affect other businesses in town? already existing. Would this small business tax credit affect them, or is this only new businesses coming into town unless
So-
there's an expansion on existing businesses?
It would only be an expansion.
Okay.
So they have to do both. They have to hire 5 people, and they also have to expand or do a new building,
Okay. How much expansion?
2,500 square feet.
So that's what the mayor, I think his intentions with working with Main Street is that something that then can help existing businesses. This is for new. The Main Street is going to help not only new, but existing, correct, Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Thank you.
So we're actually giving three incentives. Is that what you're working
Well,
up
it's
to?
really 2. It's the ordinance and resolutions, basically 1, and then the tax break.
Mr. Sweeney.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Mayor, what say you? Where are you on these things? I know you're part of the team that put it together, but are you advocating for these as well? I mean, as opposed to just bringing facts?
It's important for us to outreach to new businesses, and it's across the board. We do have one applicant that is a hotel who's really on the move, but it's universal, and it'll blend in with the Main Street. But Main Street only is the old town. It can go out to businesses, as we understand it, later on, but not into new buildings and construction downtown. We just have to. There's a lot to work on, but it's a step in the right direction. Let's bring it on.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Davis.
Zach, is there anything out in the wings there waiting that this might help draw them in? Anything that you?
Well, over at Rudders, we stated at the Planning Commission meeting that they're developing the pump station for up to 500 homes and 50 acres of commercial. So I'm sure this will help spark some kind of development that's just waiting for the right moment.
Mr. Sweeney.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Davis, is it okay if we jump in? Sure. Okay. The spark for the growth that we're talking about in your sentiment where we are now, and I know it's sort of a, not entirely a blank slate, but close to it. Would this align with our comprehensive plan as it stands?
Yes,
Okay.
because it's going to incentivize businesses to, we have a lot of empty space over in our industrial area.
Okay.
So these businesses will be able to take care of the tax break at least if they don't have enough taps to meet that 30 threshold.
Okay.
And the other new businesses that they are also bringing in can benefit from this too, or are they just for the hotel? You have
It's-
to have 30 taps or more.
How we wrote the ordinance is basically it's going to be for a single tax parcel.
Okay.
So it's not going to benefit the other businesses. It's not going to benefit Rudders because they're only 7 taps.
All right.
It's not going to benefit Duncan because they're only negative. They're actually negative taps. So,
Tax credit could help Rudders.
but the tax credit could help Rudders if they ask for it. Tax credit could help Duncan if they ask for it. If it's passed in time, we're not sure how long it's actually going to take to get this past the General Assembly.
Yeah, it's true.
Any other questions?
Sure. Could we tie in some aesthetics there? Like expectations of aesthetics of a property? So, for example, more compliance. Well, can't say compliance. More aligned with our architectural guidelines? I mean, I think the board has that capacity. Like basically,
Well, I think the General Assembly is going to what dictates the language of your tax credit.
That's correct. Yeah, that's
So
correct.
I don't know if they're going to add anything additional or if they have like boilerplate language in their, that they approve.
for that perhaps, but how about the payment plan option? I mean, don't we have an option there to incentivize alignment with the architectural guidelines?
That would be a strain. I mean,
That would be a question for Leslie,
Yeah.
I would imagine,
Okay.
because I don't know how you tie in architectural guidelines to water and sewer tap fees. since
Actually,
they're,
that's a good point, actually, because this is in the water and sewer section, so I'm not sure if we could do it in this,
but we certainly, we
yeah.
can ask Leslie.
As you can see in my transparent thought here, I really want more alignment with the architectural guidelines, and I would perhaps hope the board consider it for future ordinance and zoning.
Or any new businesses come in, has to go through planning and zoning, and they can hold they chose not to go, I don't think, to press the architects. They gave them a choice for the rudders.
Right, they didn't hold them to it,
Right.
which is very disappointing.
That's our planning and zoning, but they could have,
That's because they're guidelines.
yeah.
There's an
I
old
understand
saying
that, I
that they're
do,
just
and that's-
guidelines that you
that's what
don't
I'm
have
thinking.
to.
Pushing further on that issue, but at the same time, despite there being guidelines, it would really be in the best interest of our community for the long run to have more teeth to that issue, as opposed to taking plastic boxes and calling them retail sites. You know, we want an attractive community. I'll leave it at that. And the guidelines push for that.
I'm not sure how strict we can get with that, but you all have done a great job with that. If you just think how you've improved the east end of town, what we used to see coming into the east end of town, what we see now is, you know, and now adding rudders to it sure doesn't take it backwards compared to what it was 10 years ago. So I think you all are doing a good job with that. And yeah, you always like to, but you can't even find a McDonald's now because there's no more arches. You know, I drove by looking for a McDonald's. You can't even find one now. So I want the arches back.
We could legislate. I don't know.
All righty, is there any more questions on this
So,
topic?
my only, well, one big question right now, so we're discussing tonight, so then we can, this has a weird feedback thing on. It'd be added to the agenda then for January.
It can be, if that's what the board desires. Yeah, because it's just discussion only tonight.
Do you have enough time for advertisement?
Yes, I mean, the MML guidelines are a week
Oh,
to get it posted.
Okay.
That's ideally, it doesn't always have to be that way.
So in that meeting in January, we'd be directing staff and the mayor to approach our legislative team to advocate for this.
I'm sorry, we were
Sorry.
discussing something else.
Sorry. So in the January meeting, we would be authorizing the mayor and staff to pursue this with our legislative team in the assembly.
Yes.
For the tax part of
So
it.
you'd have you'd have the resolution, the ordinance, and then if you desire to give us authorization to reach out to the General Assembly.
And the other two will go through us.
Correct.
The tax, this tax table will go to legislature, to the Annapolis.
I personally think it's a step in the right direction. It's like I said several months ago. Right now, you can't get an egg sandwich in Emmitsburg on Monday, and it's not that I want another restaurant to come to Emmitsburg, but I want to make the ones have a reason in here to open up on a Monday. You know, and to have people here and have people in town, and have, you know, so it's not that I want another restaurant. I want the ones to have to open and have that reason to open.
I have another question.
Mr. Ritz?
It wasn't addressed in any of this, but how are we pursuing potentially the Main Street program? I know we discussed that last meeting too.
We reached out to them immediately, but they haven't got back to us.
Okay.
And, see if
Where are they
they-
based out of?
Pardon?
Are they based out of Annapolis or
And maybe Baltimore,
Baltimore?
maybe downtown Baltimore. Baltimore, yeah.
All right.
All righty, if there's no further questions, I need a motion we need to put this on the agenda. So we
Right,
need
so
a
what-
motion to put it on the agenda?
So I have a list of modifications for the agenda for January, and then once we go through those, oh yeah, that's right. Did you wanna
Diane,
speak?
would you like to speak on this? Go ahead, get up and give your name and where you live.
Diane Walbrecker, 535 West Main Street. As a person who lives on the main part of Main Street. I see that you guys are doing this, and I'm all in favor of a small business tax credit. I think that's great. But I just wondered what you're doing in terms of it. This isn't specifically to only help the businesses that are here. This is going to attract some new businesses too. Is there anything that you're doing in terms of bringing more parking to town so that we can have businesses in the places that have existing buildings and where businesses used to be? Because parking is a huge issue, and I think we need to solve that too in order to bring more businesses downtown. So,
Okay, thank you.
I can meet that one.
Okay.
I can kind of talk about that just a little bit. One thing we're really pushing right now, and I've reached out to SHA since our last meeting, is the park and ride. So that's going to bring at least 100 spaces, and supposedly they're chugging along. So they're going to give me more updates. So that will help out at least the east end of 15. One part about in town, which we're having difficulties finding, is empty lots close to the square. So that's the problem.
Commissioner Burns?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. The parking lot is going to be outside of town, so that won't necessarily alleviate any of the parking issues in town. But the unfortunate side effect of all of this is if you look at what we have existing in town right now, there's unfortunately with the exception of next to the Chronicle, there's no real empty spaces at this point in time in which to put anything without bulldozing something down, which none of us want to do. I'm open for ideas on if you know of land or anything.
That's what we purchased South Seaton Avenue for, to
Right,
put a
and it's-
parking lot. We never did put that down.
Right.
So,
So that's the unfortunate side effect of things. Your
sorry.
other option is obviously the expanding on the alleys behind and meter those, but there's not enough existing room on those alleys to expand because of the sidewalks and things of that nature. We put the new sidewalk in down towards Creamery Road, and then you have the new sidewalk that's leading towards the pool, which obviously gets used on a regular basis, but that doesn't leave us much space for expansion there. And I can't think of anywhere else at this point. That's the hard part about all this.
Commissioner Davis?
Well, there's an elephant in the room. We might as well talk about it. And that we keep talking about that vacant lot on South Seaton Avenue. And the reason we don't talk about it or probably haven't approached it is because who owns it? And just because the mayor owns it doesn't mean we can't take that into consideration. It's called supply and demand. And, if he wants to donate it, we'll name it after him. I'd like that.
I've tried multiple times.
And you and Libby will have free parking there the rest of your life. But no, it's something, that's the spot. There is no other spot. That's the spot. And I think we've got to address it. And if he's not interested in selling, it's done. And that's got to be done at a different time other than this. But I think it's time that we take a look at that spot, because that's the one staring us in the face. And we shouldn't back off just because who owns it.
Mr. President,
Commissioner O'Donnell?
thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, well said. One item that we can do with what we do currently have is identify where it is by proper signage, which we don't have at this time. I know we're very keen on the kiosks and inviting people to enjoy our history and participate in that. All for it. I mean, history is my profession. But the other side of it is to make the downtown more user-friendly, we need to identify for folks that you can off-street park. There is the pool lot at the appropriate times. There's this lot, unfortunately, bottom of the hill versus top of the hill. But we don't identify where our parking is off Main Street terribly well. And if we're able to do that with appropriate signage, I think that will push us in the right direction, make us more user-friendly, invite more retail users, and better support our businesses in town. Then, I think also, look at what our options are regarding property that's available. So, I think better cohesive signage about our assets and our resources in town, like parking especially, I think that's something that we need to do.
There is another property that we tried to annex before and one did not get through, which is in the middle of town too, but it's the Bollinger property. I mean, if they could be willing to sell a piece of that for parking too, I imagine. That is behind the laundromat.
That would have to
From
be
the-
subdivided. It's a really large lot that goes.
Big lot.
Yeah.
They wanted to annex it at one time, but it wouldn't get through. It failed.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Commissioner Broom?
the Antique Mall owns all that property and parking lot included, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You also have the, where the food bank and pregnancy center used to be. It's vacant now.
Oh, that's
What's
the
become of that property?
old brick mill. I mean, the old
Is that Emmitsburg?
feed mill.
No, it's privately owned. We've had discussions with him at the time. He wasn't interested in selling, but now that it's vacant,
Is that Mr.
I don't remember his name, do you?
Sullivan?
Sullivan. Yes. Yep.
So there are some options.
Oh, he still owns that?
It's not worth fixing back up. You'd have to tear it down to build it, so it would be,
Oh, I know.
it'd be
You're
nice
right.
for a
Yeah.
parking lot.
It's bad. Yeah.
Yes. Anybody else? Mr. Ritz?
That's up to him.
No, I'm sorry. I was just the owner of that property. I was.
Mr. Sweeney,
Mr. Burns?
would it, if you listen to what everybody's doing in the state of Maryland right now, and the Virginia conversation is they're doing the private, public-owned highways and things of that nature, would it be prudent for us to approach Mr. Sullivan with the proposal to allow that to become a parking lot for town, but with the meters being privately owned, for him to continue to obviously make a profit off the property at this time? I know that's the discussion that's been going on with 270 and the Beltway and stuff like that, is allow the privately owned companies to build everything and do that and then take the benefits of them for X amount of years or whatever. So would if we are continuing to look for options like that, is that something that we could consider? I don't know if that's written in
Right, I don't know.
anywhere or anything like that.
Do you know? I have to, yeah, we'd have to look at that, and I'm sure we could always reach out to him again, to see if he's interested at all.
So like private meters for
Right.
times and things of that nature. He would be in charge of laying down the asphalt and everything like that, private meter, but it would be open to,
The public.
It would have to have a public easement on it and
Yeah.
restrictions on the deed, but
yeah, just a thought.
Well, and there is a piece of property across from Mother Seton School, correct, too?
oh yeah.
That's the Emmitsburg Glacier now, or
Mr. Reaver?
Mr. Weaver owns that big field there behind the,
He has. I don't know if he would sell it though. He has some plans for that lot. He has a couple ideas.
Just have to remember, Urban Land Institute says max of people like to walk is 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And that's awfully far away, that's awfully far away
that's why
from the
we
square.
would love to purchase your property or have it donated in your name.
For the public-private ownership.
Yeah, say that the other way. We would love you to donate it or purchase. Let's do
I
the
mean,
donate first.
you can turn a profit off of that while it's
See
Sitting.
what you got, see what you got. Friend. here you go.
Alrighty.
Here you go.
So we have,
Thank you, Diane.
we just need, unanimous consent for this to go to you, or? To be put
Yes.
on the,
And then we'll put it on the agenda, and then you can vote for the agenda for January.
okay, all in favor of putting the resolution and the,
Ordinance,
ordinance on January's,
and then the small tax,
and a small tax will be, we have to give them permission for.
correct.
And I'm letting you know now, January's got 11 things on it already. So we will be here a long time, because we do not want to have a second meeting in January.
Well,
So,
Do we need a motion for this modification? Or are we looking
I
for
don't
public
think so.
comment? Further public comment?
Yes. Come give your name and where you live.
Just sign the comment form.
Oh.
When he's done. It
Okay.
can wait.
Yeah, I can put my name down.
Yeah, you have to.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Pradeep Saini, and I'm here to discuss not so much discuss, but actually put in my 2 bits for the proposed correction of the rates. I have a little synopsis that I would like to approach the bench and hand it to you guys. Thank you.
It's a modification versus correction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't seen, just so you guys know, we haven't seen this either.
I got two. You got two. Oh,
This set includes two papers. The first one is the proposed amendment, and then the second one is the counter, which was formed in consultation with the feasibility study guys of Choice Hotels. And the figures have been drawn almost identical, other than the second page is the desired amount, which makes the project a little more feasible and falls within the purview of the amounts allocated towards utility development and infrastructure development for the hotel. So these figures are also has some bearings on the Brunswick model. And though it is admirable the amount of work that the staff and the mayor has put in into making it feasible and making it affordable, the discount structure is where we differ between the proposed and the desired. So if we were to consider a little higher discount amount, which would be in line with Brunswick, then it falls very well within the affordable and the feasible amount for the hotel. We are not approaching the water and the sewer bills, which we'll be paying every quarter, because we are not asking for that to be reviewed. So that will remain at the amount that it does. We are also not approaching the 25% upfront fee. That is also acceptable. The tax credit, though it shows on paper, and it seems like that if we take the entire tax credit and apply it towards our infrastructure, it would give us a hefty break. But unfortunately, that tax amount will be balanced by the accountants towards the tax obligation that we might have. So it might not seep down and affect the amount that we are paying for the tap fees. So the tap fees, definitely, this 178,000 looks very nice on paper, but it may not be applied by the accountants to this obligation. It may be applied elsewhere to balance the tax obligation that we have of a property, the value of which will be close to $7 million. So what we are asking for is that to develop the infrastructure, the utility infrastructure, we are coming up with about $230,000 to just have the tap fees. Add to that the construction of the building and all the other utilities that go with it. So that becomes a substantial amount of our budget to develop the hotel. So we are talking 300 versus 231, a break of about $69,000. But that $69,000 puts this whole project in the pink. It puts it into the feasible diagram. And that, I believe, might have been the reason why Brunswick chose to do 30% rather than 40 or 20. So to fall into that equation.
Yeah, but Brunswick gave the 30% because they gave $20 million to the downtown.
Sure,
To
I
redo
do
it.
understand.
You guys aren't offering us $20 million to redo our downtown, are you?
I do understand that. What I meant was the figure 30% bears importance here because it puts it into the feasible amount. Otherwise, it becomes the red.
Mr. Burns?
The unfortunate side effect is just that the Brunswick was able to do the additional 20% because of the 20 million. coming in from the developers, correct?
Yeah.
I'm sure it has a major bearing on that. But what I'm trying to, I should not even mention Brunswick probably.
I think it has singular bearing on it, the
Yeah.
capacity to do that.
Nobody else in the county has it at all,
Right. I'm
30%.
So, I mean,
See, because we're trying to, not just for you, this is gonna be for any business that comes in the future. That's what we're trying to do it for. We're not just trying to do it just for your hotel.
true.
You understand? So we have to make it feasible for the whole, and all the new businesses that are coming into town, and what helps the town residents and to help our town grow, because we have to maintain everything, all the old lines and new lines both. So that extra money helps us with maintenance on our lines and stuff.
Well, it's not,
replacing them.
it's not to correct you, sir, but it's not extra money, it's necessary money, it's fee generated. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
one creates the other.
See, since we're such a small town, every little bit of money helps,
Sure.
we don't have much room to wiggle around. And, that's why I'm saying 30%'s a lot for us. We have 10% that we considered, which will be going for everyone. Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. A consideration, something you had mentioned before, you were dealing with venture capitalists. Is it possible for you to go back and talk about that difference perhaps with a commercial entity?
Yes, it very well would be. I'm opening various conversations with everybody around. I'm not close to anything at all. And I desperately want this project to work because it's my dream project. But other than that, tailing behind this, as I've mentioned, is other businesses which will come in. And I'm not going to be approaching your office, your good office, for additional help every time a business comes in, because this is a major project. It's a project this size is beyond my personal means. As I've said, I'm stretching myself beyond my capacity. So for this to be in the pink or to be in the white is very crucial, rather than right now the figures are in the red as far as feasibility is concerned. And then when it looks red to a lot of people who want to back me up, and they don't want to back me anymore because it looks in the red. But other businesses, if there is a way that this $69,000, other 3 businesses or 3 restaurants that tail behind my hotel, we could recuperate. Or I'm also working towards the Emmett Ridge, and Emmett Ridge is another development that I wish to do along with this, or maybe after this. If the recovery of the town, if we look at more holistic view and take a larger view that, okay, we will recover the 69,000 from the other 2 businesses or 3 businesses that come in, tailing behind this hotel. Let this be a trailblazer, and let this bring in a lot of wealth to the community, and which I desperately support. I do want this town to flourish. I do want this town to gain and profit.
But you understand, we just didn't give you 69,000, we gave 400,000 back. The incentive that we are giving, that we haven't given yet, because if we don't give it, then it stays at 750.
Right, I understand.
So, but if we pass what we have now, you get a $400,000 break, not a $69,000 break, you get a $400,000 break. I mean, not just you, everybody else that comes down will get the same break.
Right. Right.
And again, Mr. President, if you don't mind me jumping in,
Commissioner O'Donnell.
we're trying to come to that middle point where we both can benefit and flourish, as you say. The equation on our side, though, is as much as we want you as an individual and your family and your legacy to be a solid one within the community, we also have to kind of balance the here and now of the community. And we have individuals that, were we to adjust this, I feel, any further, we would have to see a certain increase in our taxes for our community. And there are some folks who are hanging on by fingernails, and we're trying to not marginalize people by that. So there's a benefit to what you're saying if we take the long view, and it's very clear. And I think we have made a significant action toward goodwill by modifying our rate that wasn't under consideration before. And I understand that you have your investors who are keen on seeing things improve further on your side of the equation. And, you know, business is business. We understand that profoundly. But it could be that maybe the timing's not right. And that, you know, if another model doesn't come forward, and I don't see it coming forward from our end at this point in time yet, the reality might be deferring this in time. The other side is perhaps there is another model for financing that, you know, maybe some other commercial entity beyond venture capitalists could support you. And I think what you're bringing forward is a very good product, and I think goodwill on our part is very evident in what we're attempting to do to accommodate that. So perhaps that would have some purchase with a commercial organization. So it's difficult for us to stretch beyond unless there's some grant funding or some other source that we're not aware of to close the gap on your side. It's just we do have to balance it for the whole of our community that exists at this time. We certainly want to take the long view. And I personally, in my mind, speaking for me, you know, I want to believe that we're trying to make the town better, not just for ourselves, but for 2 generations down the line. And at times we have to stop and look at the here and now and be in this moment. And that's where we are. So it might be an impasse. But, you know, we've given $400,000+ in modifications. And I think it might be time to come back on your side and say maybe you can close that gap after you talk to perhaps commercial entities, banks, or, you know, have another conversation with your venture capitalists, your VC folks. So, you know, we want to see this. We do.
We do. We really want you to come, but we're having big problems in the town now with certain things in the town that all the extra money that we get from you guys for giving us goes towards that, to maintain the water feeds or maintain the old lines that we have. And without that money, we can't maintain them. We'd have to raise taxes to get the money to maintain them. So any little bit, I mean, we're giving you a lot for us. For a little small town of 2,500 people, $400,000 is a lot to give. And only $69,000 is what's going to make or break it. I don't see how that could happen, but I hope it doesn't. But I feel we have to do what's best for town. We're trying to do what's best for all the business coming in. Yours first, and then the other ones will benefit it from when they come back in. But I don't think we can give anything else. This is as much as we can give without having to raise taxes ourselves in town, and the residents, I don't think want that. That's my opinion. Mr. Davis?
Is there anything out there in the state with grants funding? I know that Brunswick just got something, and I saw where there was some money left over from the hotel that was supposed to go in downtown Frederick.
We reached out to Visit Frederick and also the Office of Economic Development for Frederick County, and there's no state grant funding or local grant funding for these types of businesses.
Where did the money come from? Maybe you might not know. This is probably an unfair question, but it was the brew pub or the brewery in Brunswick that they found money for.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I thought you would, Zach, especially the brew pub.
I know.
Maybe
That's also a different kind of business.
Yeah.
They specifically don't offer monies for retail and lodging.
Because I thought there was money that the state delegation had money that the state was putting forward towards the hotel in Frederick, and then since that got washed away, I thought I saw in the paper where that money was available again, and they were looking for places to put that money.
Yeah, we submitted a request
Okay.
from the town for projects in the town. That's what that money was available for.
Okay.
I think Federal County Tourism has a grant, but I don't know how much it is.
Not for this.
Not for hotel and lodging, because I knew for us to apply for more, we had to go through hotel and lodging,
From the hotel in Frederick.
through the tourism. That's a couple years ago.
You also have to have a Main Street program
Oh,
to
okay,
get
that's
that
right.
funding.
That's correct. I forgot about the Main Street program. Any other questions?
I guess
Mr. Ritz?
it looks like we're going to be voting on this next month. We didn't set the agenda yet, did we? Did I
No,
miss that?
We
Okay.
did not. We did not.
So in the meantime, you said you might be talking to some of your investors,
Sure, yes.
and you know, as it stands right now, what was presented this evening, you mentioned in the red. I mean, does it? Where we stood, you know, at the beginning of November, do you or back in October, do you feel any even a little bit? What was offered this
you
evening?
can't imagine. This is tremendous. What
Okay.
work has been done on this. This is
Yeah,
tremendous.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, there's no lack of appreciation for the intent. Definitely, everybody sitting here, their intention is beyond doubt towards the town and the development. But I needed to bring to you what the feasibility study actually works out numbers. That's all they do.
Okay.
And I needed to bring that to you for consideration. And but I do understand the other side of the equation also.
Okay.
So I will continue to develop this conversation, and I'll be in touch definitely with you guys. Thank you very much for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
So, we have unanimous consent to put this on January's agenda?
Do you want
Yes.
to vote or just consent, sir?
She only needs consent, I think.
If you consent, and then I'll add it to the agenda, and then you guys can make a motion to accept it at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
So all three, these two will be on, and then tax thing we have to give you permission for.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, okay, yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Okay.
We need modifications to the January 6th agenda, so we're gonna be adding these for sure.
Correct. So I have a total of 11 items for January's meeting. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4 will remain the same. We would then like to add these 3 items here. Approval of ordinance 20-01, creation of a sewer and water connection fee payment plan for consideration. Approval of resolution 20-04R, establishing the terms and conditions for the sewer and water connection fee payment plan for consideration. And then authorize the mayor and town staff to seek an amendment from the General Assembly and governor to authorize implementation of the small business tax credit for consideration. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 would be the amendment to policy P18-01, ball field reservation fees for consideration. Oops, wrong way, 9, an ordinance to amend 13.04.170, water systems prohibited acts generally for consideration. And this is going to be related to tapping into fire hydrants without permission.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Along those lines, has it been considered, I know I was informed in Frederick City and/or parts of Frederick County that there are companies that are allowed to draw from fire hydrants as long as it's metered? Is that something that's been discussed in the 1304 dash?
No, this would be just basically one item that says any person detected connecting to a town fire hydrant for any non-emergency purpose will be subject to a $1,000 fine for each offense. Now, we did allow the contractor with State Highway to connect during the project at one point, and it was metered. There are a lot of municipalities that I'm finding have a permit system, so that's something we want to look into, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted to get this at least on the agenda in case we do
Gotcha.
come across anything, and then we're going to move forward with other options.
Okay.
Yeah, usually pool companies and stuff can use them with meters, but they usually come to the town and buy them.
Right,
or
I know.
rent them.
It was discussed that someone watched a tanker fill up behind Cracker Barrel down in Frederick the other day.
Yeah,
And I know pool companies fill up at Mount St. Mary's
Right.
and things of that nature. I know that we don't have it on the books here. And so my fear, given some of the events in the last several weeks, is are there companies that are aware of that and are,
Exploiting it.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll look into it. We're gonna
Alright.
dive in further. I just wanted to get this one in for now. And then I
do
have
have a
one
question.
administrative business item to add.
Okay.
So in addition to the football team, it'll be the announcement of the 2019 Business and House Decorating Contest winners.
The football team is the presentation for the, what we're gonna present them.
56 of them.
Are they all coming here?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because if they are, can we get them first?
No, no, of course not.
Well, it is
Have a full
administrative
room, then.
business, which is up front.
We can put them, I'd put it on administrative.
Put them right up here.
It is.
Put them right up here.
It currently is.
Or we might just get the
Oh, and
ones from
two
Emmitsburg.
admin.
No, just so you know, we're gonna invite them to come at 6:30. My family's gonna supply some refreshments for them before the game. Kids like to eat, so that'll get them here. But, we'll be doing something, so if you wanna come and meet the kids and, that'll be a good thing.
Where's that be in Fairhall?
No, we'll do it right here. We'll be able to,
We're done?
we'll set up in the back room and.
6:30?
All right.
6:30.
Thank you all for joining us tonight.
We'll put them in somewhere.
Oh, there's
And that's all I
cafeteria
have.
too.
I know we have a lot of items, but a lot of these we should be able to go through pretty quickly,
Yes.
don't you think?
Yes.
Yes. There is another one on there, the audit's on here too, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, they
the
all-
number 1, 2, 3, and 4, your audit presentation, final approval of the wayside exhibits, the public hearing on the forest conservation and the commercial buffer, and then the logging stand 6 for consideration.
The longest thing will be the audit.
The audit, right? Those other, the rest of the other 10 should go pretty quickly. Right?
Sometimes they do.
would
Oh,
think
yes.
so.
I-
Yeah, you
I
just
thought
keep 'em
so
moving.
before, yeah.
You just keep them
Great.
moving
Yes,
there.
Mr.
Very
Burns.
positive.
If a typo was found on the wayside exhibits, should we bring that to you before or after?
Before,
Okay,
please.
got it.
If you want to send it to, or just tell Maddie,
Yeah.
or email her, one or the other.
My
Any
father-
other questions?
My father-in-law found stuff.
Okay.
Any other questions or anything
Then
before we
yes,
close
please.
the workshop?
I have none.
I need a motion to close the workshop.
Motion to close the workshop?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Burns, there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ritz, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Because they say you don't have to do.
Thank you for coming.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.